Daf Yomi, Tractate Avodah Zarah, page 36. Okay? Top of the page. With the words Zilfatan shel kelim tmeim osartan. Atu kule almach letar ozninu ela zilfatan shel kelim asurin osartan. The secretion of ritually impure vessels prohibits the oil that Gentiles pour into them. The Gemara asks, is that to say that all people are consumers of only ritually pure substances? Since it is common practice to eat ritually impure foods, why should the secretion of impure vessels render the oil prohibited? The Gemara amends Shmuel's statement. Rather, the secretion of prohibited vessels prohibits the oil as it absorbs the prohibited substances. Amalei Shmuel Rav, Bishlam Elididi, De'amina Zilfatan Shel Kelim Asurin Osartan, Hanu Dechia Ta'arav Yitzchak Bar Shmuel Bar Marta Ve'amar, Darish Rabbi Simulai Ben Etzivin, Shemen, Rav Yehuda Obed Dino, Nimnu Alav V'Yitiruhu. Shmuel said to Rav, granted, according to my opinion, as I say, that the secretion of prohibited vessels prohibits the oil. This is how one can understand that when Rav Yitzchak Bar Shmuel Bar Marta came, he said that Rabbi Simlai taught in Netzivim. With regard to oil, Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi and his court were counted, meaning voted, on this matter and permitted it. Kasava noten tam nifigam. Shmuel elaborates. It can be explained that Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi holds a prohibited substance that imparts flavor to the detriment of the mixture is permitted. Noten tam nifigam. According to Shmuel's explanation, the prohibition was revoked because the taste absorbed by the oil would have impaired its flavor rather than enhanced it. Daniel gazar alav. Daniel gazar ve'ata. Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi u'atela atnan. Ein bedin yachol levatel divrei beit din chaviro, ela im ken gadol haimenu chochma v'binyan. But according to you, Rav, who said that Daniel decreed a prohibition upon the oil of Gentiles? How can this be understood? Can it be said that Daniel decreed it, and Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi came and voided the decree? But didn't we learn in a Mishnah in Eduyot 1:5? A court cannot void the statements of another court unless it is greater than it in wisdom and in number. According to Rav, how could Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi void a decree issued by Daniel? Amalei Simlai Luda. Comment. Shani Ludai. Timizalzu. Amalei Shlach Leah B'Ichsti. Rather than answering Shmuel's question directly, Rav first rejects his proof. Rav said to him, was it Rabbi Simlai of Lod, of whom you spoke? Residents of Lod are different, as they disparage the sages' decrees, and therefore Rabbi Simlai's testimony is unreliable. Shmuel said to him, shall I send for him? As a result, Rav became embarrassed. Amarav. אם הם לא דרשונה, לא דרשינן, והחיטיב, וישם דניאל על ליבו, אשר לא יתגאל מפת ברק המלך, וביין משטר, בשתי משטרות, הכתוב מדבר, אחד משתי יין, אחד משתי שמן. Rav claimed that Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi and his court erred in permitting the oil of Gentiles, which Daniel had prohibited. Rav said if they, Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi in his court did not expound the following verse. Will we not expound it? We must certainly do so. Is it not written, but Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with the king's food, nor with the wine which he drank? Daniel 1:8. The word mishtav is in the plural, indicating that the verse speaks of two types of drinking. One is the drinking of wine, and one is the drinking of oil. Accordingly, Daniel himself refrained from consuming oil of Gentiles, as he instituted this prohibition. Why does Shmuel reject this inference, which indicates that Daniel issued this decree? Rav Savar ali bosam ulechol Yisrael hara, u'Shmuel Savar ali bosam ulechol Yisrael lo hara. The Gemara explains that Rav maintained Daniel placed the prohibition against consuming the oil of Gentiles upon his heart, meaning for himself, and he instructed all Jews to adhere to it as well. And Shmuel held Daniel placed the prohibition upon his heart, but he did not instruct all Jews to accept it. V'shemen Daniel Gazal Ve'amar bali abibi nivta nishbed Rav Pita v'sham na'yena mu'ilotehen kulam mishmona asar dvarhen. The Gemara asks that, is it correct that Daniel decreed that oil is prohibited? But doesn't Bali say that Avimi of Nota'ah, Eliezer of Nota'ah, Avimi of Nota'ah says the name of Rav, the prohibitions of the Gentiles' bread and their oil, their wine, and their daughters are all from the 18 matters decreed in a single day, in the days of the students of Shammai and Hillel. Apparently, Rav himself maintains that the prohibition was not instituted by Daniel. My asadute era Daniel Gazal Arabiino. The Gemara adds that if you would say that Daniel came and decreed, but the people did not accept it, and later the students of Hillel and Shammai came and decreed with regard to Gentiles' oil, and the people accepted it. If that is so, what is the significance of Rav's testimony that Daniel initially instituted the prohibition? The Gemara explains, rather, Daniel decreed upon the oil of Gentiles in the city, and the students of Shammai and Hillel came and decreed that it is prohibited even in the field. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, Heichi Matzeh L'Mishrei Takanda T'Tamidei Shammai V'Hillel V'Yadnan Beit Din Yachol Vatel Divrei Beit Din Chaviro אלא אם כן גדול ממנו, בחכמה ובמניין. ועוד, האמר רב בר חנא אמר רבי יוחנן, בכל יכול לבטל בית דין דברי בית דין חברו חוץ מ18 דבר, שאפילו יבוא אליהו בית דינו אין שומעים לו. The Gemara asks, and how could Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi permit an ordinance issued by the students of Shammai and Hillel? But didn't we learn in a Mishnah that a court cannot void the statements of another court unless it is greater than it in wisdom and in number? And furthermore, doesn't Rabbi Bar Chana say that Rabbi Yochanan says, with regard to all issues, a court can void the statements of another court except the 18 matters decreed by the students of Beit Shammai, as even if Elijah and his court were to come and rescind them, one would not listen to him. שמן לא פשט, איסור ברוב ישראל, דאמר רבי שמואל, ברבא, אמר רבי יוחנן, ישבו רבותינו ובדקו על שמן, שלא פשט איסור ברוב ישראל. סמכו רבותינו על דברי רבן שמעון בן גמליאל, על דברי רבי אלעזר בר צדוק, שהיו אומרים, אין גוזרים גזרה על הציבור, אלא אם כן רוב ציבור יכולים לעמוד בה. תאמר Avodah ברחבה מה יקרא? Rabbi Shasha said, what is the reason that one of the 18 decrees can be voided? Since the prohibition spread among the majority of Jewish people, it cannot be voided. But with regard to oil, its prohibition did not spread among the majority of the Jewish people, and therefore it can be voided. As Rabbi Shmuel bar Abba says, Rabbi Yochanan says, our sages sat and inspected the matter of Gentiles' oil and determined that its prohibition had not spread among the majority of the Jewish people, and our sages relied upon the statement of Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel and upon the statement of Rabbi Elazar ben Bar Tzadok, who would say the sages issue a decree upon the community only if most of the community is able to abide by it. As Rav bar Hava said, what is the verse from which it is derived? Now we turn to the top of 36b. B'ma'era atem ne'arim, ve'oti atem kovim ha'goy kulo, iga goy kulo in ila da. It is the verse, you are cursed with the curse, yet you rob me, even this whole nation. Malachi 3:9. This teaches that if there is the acceptance of the whole nation, yes, an ordinance may be instituted, but if not, no, the ordinance may not be instituted. Weiter. Gufa amar bali, amar avimi Avodah. משמי דרב פיתן ושמן ינם נותן כל הניש בונסה דברי בנותיהם ההיא אבל בן נחמן יצחק עזור בנותיה נידות מערי סודן. The Gemara discusses the matter itself. Bali says that Avimi of Nota says, in the name of Rav, the prohibitions with regard to the Gentiles' bread and their oil, their wine and their daughters are all from the 18 matters issued in a single day in the time of the students of Shammai and Hillel. The Gemara asks, with regard to their daughters, what is the decree? Rabbi Nachman bar Yitzchak says, they decreed upon their daughters that they should be classified as menstruating women from the time they're in their cradle, meaning they decreed that from when they're young, Gentile women are always considered to be menstruating. I'm not sure why. Ukevinam mishmei derav amar kol mishum boy zagazo bahen dichia Zarah bar Adam amar Rabbi Yitzchak azor pitam mishum shamnan ma yolmed shemen mipat. The Gemara presents another opinion. And Geneva says, I thought it was Gavina, but it's actually Geneva. And Geneva says, in the name of Rav, Gentiles' bread, oil, wine, and daughters are all decreed upon due to the concern the Jews might participate in idol worship with Gentiles as a result of intermingling with them. As when Rav Acha came from Eretz Israel to Babylonia, he said that Rabbi Yitzchak says they decreed a prohibition upon their bread due to their oil. The Gemara asks, in what way is the prohibition with regard to oil stronger than the prohibition with regard to bread? That is, why does the primary concern relate to the oil of Gentiles rather than their bread? אלא פיתם ושמנו משום ינן ינן משום בנותיהן בנותיהן משום דבר אחר דבר אחר משום דבר אחר. The Gemara offers a different interpretation. Rather, they issued a decree prohibiting their bread and their oil due to their wine. And they issued the decree prohibiting their wine due to the fact that this leads to familiarity, and Jews will come to marry their daughters. And they issued a decree prohibiting their daughters due to something else, namely idolatry. And they further issued a decree on something else due to something else, which will be explained by the Gemara. Binotehen deoraita dichtiv lo titchatin bam deoraita shiva goyim aval shar umot lo ve'atuinu ugezu afilu de shar umot. It was stated that the prohibition against marrying the daughters of Gentiles was decreed on account of idolatry. The Gemara raises an objection, but the prohibition against marrying their daughters is prescribed by Torah law, as it is written, "Neither shall you make marriages with them," Deuteronomy 7:3. The Gemara explains, by Torah law, intermarriage is prohibited only with the 7 Canaanite nations. But intermarriage with the other nations of the world is not prohibited. And the students of Shammai and Hillel came to decree that intermarriage is prohibited even with the other nations. Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai Doma Ki yasir es bincha me'acharai la'rabot kol hamesiros ma yikra le'memar ela de'raita yishut derech chatnut V'ato inhu gezur afilu derech znut. The Gemara asks, and according to the opinion of Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, who says that the subsequent verse, "For he will turn away your son from following me," Deuteronomy 7:4, serves to include all who turn away one's son from God, meaning all Gentiles. What is there to say? Rather, by Torah law, only sexual relations by way of marriage are prohibited, and they came and decreed that sexual relations are prohibited even by way of licentiousness. Znut. Nami vedino shel Shem kazo tichtiv yom Yehuda hotziu v'tisaref. The Gemara raises an objection. Licentious sexual intercourse was also prohibited earlier, as they decreed a prohibition in this regard in the court of Shem. As it is written, it was told to Judah, saying, "Tamar, your daughter-in-law, has played the harlot. Moreover, she is with child by harlotry." And Judah said, "Bring her forth and let her be burned." Genesis 38:24. This proves that the prohibition against licentious intercourse with the Gentile was in force long before the time of the students of Shammai and Hillel. Ela doiraisa goy haba al bat Yisrael. Dimashka batre abal Yisrael abal al goya lo. Ve'atoinu כזו אפילו ישראל הבא לגויה. The Gemara explains, rather, the prohibition prescribed by Torah law applies to the case of a Gentile who engaged in intercourse with a Jewish woman, as she is drawn after him toward idolatry. But the case of a Jew who engaged in intercourse with a Gentile woman is not included in the prohibition by Torah law. And the students of Shammai and Hillel came and decreed that the prohibition applies even to a Jew who engaged in intercourse with a Gentile woman. Yisrael aber Goya halacha leMoshe Messinai Damamar Aboida Miskan Boygin Boy. The Gemara rejects this prohibition concerning a Jew who engaged in intercourse with a Gentile woman as a halacha transmitted the prohibition, no, the Gemara rejects this and says that the prohibition concerning a Jew who engaged in intercourse with a Gentile woman is halacha to Moshe Sinai, not a rabbinic ordinance, as the Master said, with regard to one who engages in intercourse with an Aramean woman, zealots may attack him, as Pinchas did to Zimri in the wilderness, seen in verse 25, 6-8. Amalei Deraita Befaresia Ichemase Shehaya Ve'atuinu Gazor Aviru B'tzina B'tzina Nami B'dinu Shel Chashmon Gazor. He said to him, by Torah law, intercourse with a Gentile is prohibited in public, and only in situations. Who's doing it in public? I mean, all right. Anyway, and only in situations like the incident that occurred in Numbers 25. Basically, okay, public wasn't made. He basically was flaunting it. That's what happened. He goes, "Can I have this woman?" And for a lot of people, a lot of witnesses, like, "I'm going to take this woman and do whatever I want with her." You know, that's not right. That's not right. Then you got to establish later. That's what he did. That's talking about. That's what I think is what it says. So that's what you say, Taka. The Zimri Taka stabbed him in his wiener. Where were we? And only in situations like the incident that occurred, as described in Numbers chapter 25. And the students of Shammai and Hillel came and agreed the prohibition applies even in private. The Gemara raises another difficulty. This was also prohibited in private, as the court of the Hashmonaim, Hasmoneans, decreed that it is prohibited. V'chi asadini amar bedin shel Hashmonai gazru Yisrael ba'al hagoya chay mishum nashga. It's an acronym. When Radimi came from Eretz Yisrael to Babylonia, he said, the court of the Hasmoneans decreed that a Jew who engaged in intercourse with a Gentile woman bears liability for transgressing 4 prohibitions presented by the mnemonic Nun, Shin, Gimel, Aleph. These letters stand for Nida, menstruating woman, maidservant, Shivcha, Gentiles, Goya, and married woman, Eshet Ish. By rabbinic law, a man who engages in intercourse with a Gentile woman is considered to have violated the prohibitions involving having intercourse with all 4 of these women. When Ravin came from Eretz Yisrael to Babylonia, he said he bears liability for 4 prohibitions represented by the mnemonic Nashgaz, which is Nida, maidservant, says Nida, Shivcha, Goya, and Zoina. Menstruating woman, maidservant, Gentile, and prostitute. In any case, it is apparent that this decree was enforced before the time of the students of Shammai and Hillel. Ki gazru bedino shel Chashmonai bia, aval yichud lo ve'atoinu gazru afilu yichud nami bedino shel David gazru. The Gemara answers, when the court of the Hasmoneans decreed, they prohibited only sexual intercourse, but with regard to seclusion with a Gentile woman, no, they did not prohibit that. And the students of Shammai and Hillel came and decreed that even seclusion with a Gentile woman is prohibited. The Gemara raised an objection. Seclusion was also prohibited earlier, as the court of King David decreed that with regard to this matter. Yehoshua As Yehuda said at that time, after the incident involving Ammon and Tamar, see 2 Samuel 13:1-19, they decreed with regard to seclusion. The sages said in response to the objection, there in David's court, seclusion with a Jewish woman was prohibited, but seclusion with a Gentile woman was not prohibited. And the students of Shammai and Hillel came and decreed a prohibition. Tamar, 2 times Tamar. That's already too much. You have Tamar over there and Tamar over here. Wow. And 72 days ago, Take. Wow. Very interesting. And the students of Shammai and Hillel came and decreed a prohibition, even with regard to seclusion with a Gentile woman. I don't know if it's true or not, but Tamar, I think she was Gentile, even though she was impregnated by David. But the wife was a from the Canaanites, I think, no? Maybe he force converted her. Yichud Bas Yisrael deraisa hi Tamar b'Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Shimon ben Yozadak Remez Lichud min HaTorah menayin Shneimar ki yasicha achicha Ben imecha v'chi ben em mesit uben av em mesit. The Gemara raises yet another difficulty. Seclusion with a Jewish woman is prohibited by Torah law, as Rabbi Yochanan says in the name of Rabbi Shimon ben Yochanan. Where is there an allusion in the Torah to the prohibition against seclusion? As it is stated, if your brother, the son of your mother, entices you. Deuteronomy 13, verse 7. And does only a half-brother who is the son of a mother entice one to sin, whereas the son of a father does not entice? Ela ben mitached imimo ve'en achem yitached im kol ha'aretz b'toicha. Rather, there is a greater concern that a maternal half-brother might entice one to sin, as a son secludes himself with his mother, and no other may seclude himself with any of those with whom relations are forbidden by the Torah, since an individual and his maternal half-brother both seclude themselves with their shared mother. They are frequently together in private, and this facilitates enticement. In any case, it is clear that the prohibition against seclusion with a Jewish woman preceded King David. Yichud deraisa de'eshet ish v'ata David u'gzar afilu hayichud depnuya v'atu talmidei Beit Shammai u'Beit Hillel yazu afilu hayichud degoya. The Gemara explains the prohibition against seclusion prescribed by Torah law applies specifically to a married woman, and David came and decreed a prohibition even with regard to seclusion with an unmarried woman. And later, the students of Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel came and decreed even with regard to seclusion with a Gentile woman. Mai al davar acher mishum davar acher Amar Rabbi Nachman Yitzchak Gazru al tinok goy shi'etam beziva shelo yehei tinok Yisrael le'etzlev mishkav zachur. Okay, again, a disclaimer, I'm just reading the Talmud. This in no way reflects my own opinion. I'm just reading it. Okay? It was stated above that they issued a decree prohibiting the daughters of Gentiles due to something else, idolatry, and they further issued a decree on something else due to something else. The Gemara asks, what is the meaning of, and they further issued a decree on something else due to something else. Nachum bar Yitzchak says, they decreed upon a male Gentile child that he imparts ritual impurity as though he were a Jew who experienced a gonorrhea-like discharge. Okay, not my words. I have no idea what this is. This is just, people call other people anti-Semitic. People could say that the Jews are anti-Gentile. I'm not getting involved. I'm just reading this thing. If he were a Jew who experienced a gonorrhea-like discharge, so that a Jewish child will not become familiar with him, leading to homosexual intercourse. The sages employed a euphemism when referring to this decree. ורבי נתן בן עמרם אצל רבי. תינוק גוי, מתי מטמא בזיווה? אמר לי, בן יומו. כשבאתי אצל רבי חייא, אמר לי, בן 9 שנים ביום אחד. Okay, see, they even argue within themselves. That's why I say I'm taking no responsibility for these words. I'm just reading the text. Rabbi Zarah says I had great trouble with Rabbi Asi when I asked him the following question. And likewise, Rabbi Asi experienced trouble with Rabbi Yochanan when I posted to him. And Rabbi Yochanan had trouble with Rabbi Yochanan. And Rabbi Yochanan had trouble with Rabbi Natan ben Amram. And Rabbi Natan ben Amram had trouble with Rabbi Yehuda Anasi. I see. The inquiry was as follows with regard to a male Gentile child. From when, meaning from what age, does he impart ritual impurity? As one who experiences ziva. And Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi said to me, from when he is a day old. And when I came to Rabbi Chia, he said to me, from when he is 9 years and 1 day old. דברי לפני רבי, אמר לי, הנח דברי וחוז דברי רבי חייא. דאמרתי לגוי, המתי מטמא בן 9 שנים, ביום אחד. And when I came back and relayed Rabbi Chia's statement before Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, he said to me, discard my statement and grasp the statement of Rabbi Chia, who says, from when does a Gentile child impart ritual impurity as one who experiences ziva? From when he is 9 years and 1 day old.